Huge news for Xbox. They are doing something. What? Don't know, but it's probably anti-consumer.
Sitting down to talk about the latest Phil Spencer interview. This one comes from Destin Legary, good buddy of mine. He's been here on the channel before. Very happy for him. He just went independent, so go ahead, check out the interview. Link down below. Support my man. But we got a lot of answers from Phil Spencer on the future of the Xbox business. And if there's one thing I've always asked for from Xbox, it's just consistent messaging, clarifying any misunderstandings, and marching forward with everyone basically saying a similar thing. Because what happens with Xbox a lot is you'll have Satya Nadella saying one thing, you'll have Amy Hood saying another, Tim Stewart saying something else, Matt Booty saying something else, you'll have Sarah Bond with her own thoughts, Phil with his own thoughts. And so ultimately it feels like mixed messaging. You don't really know where everyone fully stands. Like, are they united? Are they battling? Are they all trying to win over the consumer in different ways? You never really know.
At this point, honestly, I think Phil Spencer is gonna break down any moment crying about the situation he is in, because most likely Phil Spencer is one of the people who pushed the idea to Microsoft that they should buy Bethesda and Activision Blizzard. Bethesda cost 8 billion, and Activision Blizzard cost 80, almost 90 billion to buy. Those are extreme prices. And the return on that investment should be pretty big. But what is currently happening, it's bad. It's really bad. Microsoft is extremely pissed with what's happening with these investments because they are not making anything back. Bethesda has only produced duds currently. Starfield was so bad and so lukewarm that people are now thinking that they don't even care about Elder Scrolls 6 any longer. So that's 8 billion out the window right there. And Activision Blizzard, well, let's look at what's happening. Current COD shitfest. People are pissed. People are leaving en masse. It's bad, and they're not doing a good job with it. World of Warcraft, completely downwards trajectory, lowest player activity ever seen in the game so far. It is extremely sad and bad. Not to mention internally Blizzard is collapsing with DEI, we have reports. Then we have things like, Diablo 4, the game that killed itself, and then Patapixel 2 decided to kill it again. So that's not going well at all. And then you have Overwatch 2, that got completely ruffle-stomped in the face by Marvel's rivals. It's not even close, boys. These investments for Microsoft are a blazing pile of shit.
No, so marching forward here with this information, I think Phil cleared up a lot of misconceptions about the Xbox business, and there's no going back now, right? As I've talked about with previous Xbox videos, this multi-platform push is in full effect, and Phil has really firmed up some of the rumors that have been surrounding Xbox as of late. So we're going to dive into this interview piece by piece, going to offer my thoughts, and we also have an article from The Verge by Tom Warren, which suggests that Xbox has much more happening beyond June. A lot of people get
The Verge, yeah, I'm gonna trust that. I don't remember, did I see a video about it or did I dream, but Doom the Dark Ages is also potentially gonna go down, and it's gonna have Vogue elements in it. And I said that this is most likely gonna happen. The next game that gets Vogueified is most likely Doom. Because keep in mind, Microsoft is still extremely DEI influenced in Vogue in all aspects possible. So, Doom is a prime target to go extremely woke very, very fast. It's hilarious. And we have been in this situation for so long. Xbox has no games to offer. And there in the middle, someone is like, Xbox has more to offer, just you wait. And it's a lie. Or it's bad. It always happens. Xbox does poorly. Xbox still doing poorly. Insert rumors about Xbox has amazing things planned. Xbox does poorly anyway because that was a lie. 10 out of 10.
Confused with my Xbox coverage, and I get it because the internet exists in black and white, and I find myself in an area of nuance. I love Xbox's software push, and I've said that.
Sound of Midnight is so sad. This game is not even meant to be played on 10 FPS. It looks like it's lagging, and that's an artistic style choice, by the way, with stop animation. the graphics look bad, the design looks bad, the story's probably stupid. Your main character is a preachy lesbian, black lesbian. It's gonna be great. This is gonna be. This is like Vogue Dark Souls, but worse than Vogue Dark Souls would actually be if they made Dark Souls Vogue. Sound of Midnight is gonna be one of the biggest disasters in a long, long time.
Many times before, but I guess I should really make it extremely clear because I see people get extremely upset with me. But the software push is awesome. This year for Xbox fans will be amazing. When it comes to hardware, though, I can't stand it. And so we do get some good answers on hardware here, I think at least. And so we'll talk about both of them as well as what's coming up soon. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here and into what's going on across the games industry, we got a PlayStation video coming out later.
Subscribe, like the video.
Be sure to subscribe, lock in here. Let's start off at the top with what's going on with shipping games on multiple platforms. Phil says, quote, "We are finding that our games shipping on multiple platforms is a good thing for Xbox. It makes Xbox stronger. It lets us do the things like we did with the showcase, such as Developer Direct, and gives the teams the time that they need," end quote. And he confirms that there are games that have shipped and just won't reach other platforms. Others, they're going to wait and see, but they want their games to be played in places that people are going to play. And he's documented stats like Asia being their fastest growing region and also their fastest growing hour.
Asia being the fastest growing region is either a blatant lie, or if this is not a lie, let me explain why that is. Because 5 years ago or something, we analyzed this exact situation and predicted it, that Xbox is gonna be absolutely shafted. And the main reason because of this was because PlayStation actually had a substantial player base in exactly Asia. Well, Xbox had absolutely nothing there. Literally, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of players and users for PlayStation versus 2,000 or something like that for Xbox. And that, at the time, it seemed okay because it was kind of the same. And the numbers were almost the same. But I predicted this. As time passes and the Asian market gets more accustomed to games, because at that time, the culture around Asia was gaming's not really that thing that people are accepting of it. So it is essentially a giant untapped potential market. And well, now it's now it's starting to get tapped, and it's a gold mine. And Xbox has absolutely nothing in there. It's all PlayStation. And that makes it so that PlayStation wins everything else. Because when you get asked the question, hey, what do you want to play? Xbox that has 35% of the player base of consoles, or PlayStation, the one that almost has 70% of all players from the consoles? Well, what are you gonna pick? The already dead platform called Xbox, or the thriving PlayStation? You're gonna pick the thriving PlayStation because no one wants to pick a loser. And so Xbox lost, and they had time to change it, but they chose not to.
Hours on their platform across the board is actually on cloud. But the biggest takeaway was when Destin asked about Starfield, and Phil did say that Starfield has the potential to leave Xbox. He said he didn't want to put the gates up around any game, really.
The joke on this is obviously the fact that no one cares if Starfield even becomes free to play on PlayStation, because no one's going to play it anyway.
Really, if they wanted to go multi-plat, they could. So it sounds like Xbox and their philosophy has shifted from, we're not going to tell you you're going to do this, but developers have the option to go ahead and pursue that. And since developers typically want their game, they're artists, right? They want their games to be played by as many people as possible, are more than likely going to bring their games over to PlayStation, or who knows, maybe even a Switch 2 now. Starfield has long been on my list of games that will leave Xbox sooner rather than later. If you asked me in 2023, of course, my answer would have been completely different at that point. But now, when you see what happened with 2024 and the numbers for Starfield that dwindled off, that game is in desperate need of a shot in the arm if Todd Howard's going to live up to his promise of annual updates for the game. And I know, of course, those updates will
Todd Howard is 5'3". He cannot live up to anything.
slow down. But right now, if you look at the Steam player base, even the Xbox player base, although with Xbox, in fairness, we don't have numbers, but we know it's not a highly played
By the way, again, no one cares about Xbox. The Steam charts are all you need, baby. Look at this. By the way, they are losing players, which is wild. I remember the last time we checked these charts, the average player number was roughly 6K. Now it's 4.5. Wow, that is so bad for a Bethesda game.
Numbers, but we know it's not a highly played game, quite like it was originally leading into Starfield Shattered Space. Again, that DLC really hurt the hopes of a lot of people, so I think a new shot in the arm would be bringing this.
It didn't hurt the hopes of people. It delivered on nothing. It innovated on nothing. It doubled down on things that people didn't like about Starfield in the first place. And that was pretty much it. It sealed its own fate by doing so. They had a chance to fix the issues that people overwhelmingly said that they don't like about the game, but instead they chose to double down and continue things onward as they were. And then they decided to blame Shattered Space not being received well because well, they released the buggy previously, and if the buggy came with Shattered Space, that would have somehow magically saved Starfield. Sure.
To multiple platforms and announcing the next expansion alongside it. And I think that could get people at least looking in Starfield's direction, especially PlayStation fans who have held out and said, I'll play it in its best possible version when it arrives on PS5 Pro.
Never.
But when Xbox loses their exclusives, a lot of people have argued, myself as well, that they're going to lose their brand identity. What exactly is Xbox's identity if they're going to give up Halo, Gears, and new IP that they built their box around in, like Starfield? Well, Phil in this interview claimed that the identity is always going to continue to evolve, and in a sense, that sort of change has always been part of their identity with things such as cross-entitlement, kind of suggesting like, hey, we were letting you play your game.
It's complete desperation for a switch in direction, so the Xbox at least is profitable.
Games everywhere already, starting with Xbox and PC. And he thinks actually that the industry needs to share their identity to knock down the current business challenges that everyone is facing. Now, I have some thoughts on.
When he says everyone, he means only them. No one else is facing these problems. PlayStation, for some reason, is not even looking remotely close in the direction of this kind of strategy. I wonder why. Strange.
On this, but to get into that, one other thing that Phil said in this interview that caught my ear was when he responded to what Satya Nadella said, which was that they are at Microsoft redefining what it means to be an Xbox fan. And Phil stating, I don't know what Satya's feelings are on being an Xbox fan, but Phil says he doesn't feel it's up to him to define that, and everyone has their own approach to the ecosystem. And I did find that as an interesting way of thinking about it, because if you asked me, what does it mean to be, I guess, an Xbox fan, or why am I an Xbox fan, it would be because of the weird, zany exclusives that started back on the original Xbox. Like, for God's sakes, I could pull off this shelf here, in this Xbox category, like a dozen random games that are absolutely absurd that would only have existed thanks to Xbox. And I feel like that spirit has continued on with games like even Hi-Fi Rush. When that came out, I was like, this is the Xbox exclusive that I know and love and grew up on. For me, it was everything from like Oddworld.
Too bad no one played it.
Munch's Odyssey to Death Row to Blinks the Time Sweeper to Voodoo Vince, and the list goes on. Just these random, absurd, amazing video games that I feel like Xbox is known for, and that heritage would continue. Let's rotate the shelf of magic again, all the way to the Xbox 360, where you had even dozens of more crazy Xbox exclusives there. It was basically a higher budget version of the original Xbox. So you had that same weird and zany sort of library, but with bigger budgets, bigger games, so you got just crazier combinations. It was awesome. So that to me is what made me an Xbox fan. And when Phil says, well, it's always been part of our identity to kind of grow our ecosystem, put our games everywhere, I'm like, yes, but we all know it was within reason. And I'll go back to what I've always said about the economics of game development, is that while I get where Phil's coming from, and I think it's a fair point that, hey, the industry needs to evolve and start breaking down these walled gardens to sell more copies, it's chasing this arbitrary sense of growth that's going to undoubtedly hit a brick wall again, because eventually you're going to be everywhere. You're going to be on phones, TVs, you're going to be on consoles, you're going to be on PC, you're going to be everywhere, right? But games, people are already paying what they don't realize is a cheap price for them. Games used to be $100 back then. They got cheaper. Now we're seeing rumors of like GTA.
Sorry, did this guy just honestly defend games becoming expensive is good? And did he already say the games are $100 on it? What? If you want to buy the deluxe, no one cares, waste of money edition, sure, games are $100. And games are $100 in a lot of cases, honestly, already now true, but they previously weren't. Games back in the day were not $100, not even close. What kind of lie is that?
GTA 6 maybe charging $100 in the industry, hoping they can do that so everyone can move their prices up again. And while I understand letting artists be artists, I do think the root of the industry's economic issues goes down to development timelines. And that will, of course, exponentially inflate your budget. Of course, marketing goes into that as well. I'm just talking development fees. And there is a way to shrink down costs, and it's by making smaller, tighter games that people actually have time to complete multiple of in a year. And especially if you're Xbox, who we see how many games they're putting out this year. That's why I find it all a little bit strange, because Xbox delayed Avowed last year because they said, you know, we want you to be able to play more games and in respect for your library. And then they
Are you kidding me? Avowed is gonna fail because it costs $70 alone. Let's not even talk about the Vogue garbage. Avowed is dead just because of its $70 price tag on a double A studio. And, you know, the actual price tag is already $100 because it's the early access play 3 days early. Are you kidding me?
Proceed to go, here's Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. In March, you have Fragpunk and Atomfall on Game Pass. And then, of course, April is going to be really interesting because you have South of Midnight, you have Claire Obscure, Expedition 33. May, you have Doom the Dark Ages. And as we'll get into, we also
the Dragon and Doom Dark Ages is canonically gay.
Have a lot of rumored titles for Xbox still unconfirmed for 2025, but again, heavily rumored. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So as much as I do like Phil, I do think he has a habit of kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth a little bit. And so he's saying one thing, doing another. And I think it's the same thing with like Avowed, again, with that delay, like saying one thing and doing another, where I find it hard to believe that, you know, this idea of this dramatic shift in the Xbox identity is, quote, always what it's been. Like, this is what we've always been doing. Like, there's a difference between in 2017 you saying, or 2016 you saying, we're bringing Xbox games to PC. Like, that was an interesting step because Windows was there, so it kind of made sense for Xbox and Windows to come together. Like, that ecosystem makes sense. But for Xbox to say, hey, it's part of our identity to bring our games everywhere, so we're going to put these highly touted exclusives on PlayStation, it's like, I wish he would have just outright said, like, we need to sell more games. And he kind of says it a little bit with the current business challenge, but he's kind of saying that other companies are going to face the challenges they're facing. And I think PlayStation might be up next. We'll talk about that in our upcoming video, but their games are selling at an interesting clip where they have a lot of hardware out there. They have a lot of games out there. And now they're in a stalling period where all of their studios are reloading to fire off for probably a new generation. Because at the end of the day, these decisions.
So what? You're telling... He just unironically said, hey, these are all the reasons Xbox is suffering, and here's PlayStation's situation, which is they have released so many hardware, so many ways to play their games, and so many games that they're now doing nothing because that would just overwhelm their customers with too much stuff, and now they're waiting for the next big wave to come. Why even compete Xbox at this point if this is the situation? Oh my god, it's so bad.
Are what will define Phil Spencer's legacy and in turn Xbox. And the reason it is important to note that is because this will be the man who's known for either saving or killing Xbox as we know it. But right now, the headlines are in Phil's favor. He could be clairvoyant, as it says Microsoft was the #1 games publisher in the world last month with 465.
Yeah, and Dragon Age Railguard also won Forbes Game of the Year for some reason. It happens.
$5 million spent on Microsoft games over December across PlayStation, PC, and Xbox. And this was according to the data firm Ampere.
Oh, who cares? Who cares? These are microtransactions. They don't mean anything. If their plan is to go for microtransactions, it's not gonna work for them. By the way, that's obviously the only thing that they can theoretically do at this point, go for microtransactions, but it's not gonna matter. It's not gonna work. Okay? Wow! You have Call of Duty, the most popular game in the goddamn multiverse, and World of Warcraft, where literally a million people, well, no, actually, like 100,000 people bought $100 mount. Bruv, this doesn't matter. Because those games are down, down, down going. So this number is not actually impressive. Sure, it's the biggest. I actually believe it's the biggest. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're not gonna be selling. They're not gonna be selling King Kong gloves in Call of Duty forever. It is what it is, and it's pretty sad. Well, anyway, Xbox is pretty. That was Mr. Matty Plays 10 out of 10. Bye.